After Franklin G passed away, it dawned on me that I had been nothing more than a stand-in for his unforgettable first love. Despite this, he had treated me with the care one would give a cherished wife. For 4 decades, I never cooked, did any housework, or learned anything useful. My daughter scolded me for being spoiled, comparing me to a clueless pig. She claimed I was not as stylish as the woman her father adored, and eventually threw me out of the house. It wasn't until I left that I realized I couldn't use ride-hailing apps, connect to Wi-Fi, or even find the payment code for mobile transactions. Over time, I learned to use various apps, practiced yoga, live-streamed, and even started cooking. Occasionally, I danced in the square with a few elderly men. Just when I began to thrive, my husband miraculously came back to life. He returned with red eyes, bringing our daughter along to ask me to come home. I looked at them in shock and calmly said, "Daughter, I'm sorry. After leaving the villa, the only home I have is the one behind me. As for my husband, he's been dead for years, with grass on his grave 2 meters high." After leaving the villa, it was still raining heavily outside. I held an umbrella in one hand and a suitcase in the other, standing confused by the roadside. Although I was determined to leave the city, I felt lost facing the traffic alone. After all, I had never ventured out on my own in 40 years since marrying Franklin at 20. But now, whether I wanted to or not, I had to leave. Perhaps due to the rain, there were very few taxis. Even though I tried hailing one, none stopped because they were all occupied. Maybe noticing my struggle, a passerby couldn't stand it and advised me, "Ma'am, use a ride-hailing app. A driver will come quickly." I didn't have the app downloaded and didn't know how to use it. Embarrassed, I humbly asked, "Young man, can you teach me how to use the app?" The young man hesitated, but eventually muttered, "You look about my mom's age. How can you not know this? Never mind, I'll show you." He patiently taught me, and I did my best to learn. Suddenly, the girl next to him whispered something in his ear. He looked at me in surprise and finally blurted out, "No way, is it really her?" Then he laughed out loud, saying, "I knew it. Even an older lady can't be this clueless. Turns out you're that famous pampered wife from the internet." Being called a pampered wife shocked and confused me. After persistent questioning, the young man showed me a short video. In it, Franklin was pampering me while my daughter complained beside me, saying, "See? I wasn't lying. My mom is 60 and can't take care of herself. I'm not exaggerating. She always needs my dad to turn on the TV." I wanted to argue that the last part was exaggerated, but I held my tongue. In this internet age, isn't this what people want to see? The video had tens of thousands of likes and even more comments, most of which criticized me for being a pampered wife. The top comment read, "This isn't a pampered wife. At her age, she's clearly a pampered old lady." The terms pampered old lady and pampered wife even became popular in online literature communities. Back then, Franklin indeed took meticulous care of me. Although he had a company to manage, since marrying me, he delegated most of the work to his subordinates. Even for meetings, he only attended via video conference. Occasionally, he went to the office, but he spent most of his time by my side. He claimed to have fallen in love with me at first sight, and even more deeply the second time. At that time, I often felt that when he looked at me, it seemed as if he were seeing someone else through me. But his thoughtful care and repeated declarations of love gradually dispelled this suspicion. After all, who can pretend to love deeply for 40 years? I started to convince myself that I was overthinking it. Looking back now, he said he liked my long, straight black hair, so I never got it styled. Even when I began to get gray hair with age, I dyed it black for his sake. He also insisted I eat carrots and tomatoes that he personally prepared. Despite my dislike for them, everything had a hidden motive. Long, straight black hair was the favorite hairstyle of his unforgettable first love, and carrots and tomatoes were her preferred foods. Even the stuffed toys that crowded our bedside were her favorites. In hindsight, I was the foolish one, blinded by so-called love. It wasn't until Franklin's funeral that I met the woman who resembled me by 70% and finally understood. No, I should say that I resembled her by 70%. The funny thing is, even after learning the truth, even after that woman asserted her dominance and said Franklin had only used me as a substitute, I declared that none of it mattered anymore. But for some reason, when I look back now, I still feel a dull ache in my chest. Perhaps even the heavens agreed with my decision to leave this heart-wrenching city. I quickly managed to hail a ride to the high-speed rail station. I didn't know where to go, but thought that perhaps I could head to a place with spring-like weather all year round, far away from here, so I set my destination to Kunming. Unfortunately, the line at the manned ticket window was too long. Seeing the long queue, I hesitated. Perhaps noticing my anxiety, a person dressed like a staff member approached me and said, "Ma'am, the line at the manned window is too long. If you're in a hurry, it's more convenient to buy tickets online. Once you buy them, you don't need to pick them up. You can enter the station just by scanning your ID card." It was indeed convenient, but not for me. Looking at the online ticket purchase process posted nearby, I was stumped by the first step. I needed to scan a QR code with WeChat, but I didn't know where to find the scanner. Seeing my clumsiness, the staff member frowned and reached out for my phone. I handed it to him, and he helped me buy a ticket to Kunming. After he finished, he handed the phone back to me. A bystander muttered, "If you're old and don't know how to use it, don't come out and cause trouble. Give the young people a break. Isn't that better?" I looked at him, and the young man sneered. "What are you staring at, useless old woman? I'm talking about you." Perhaps it was because I hadn't eaten all day, and my hypoglycemia flared up again. Before I could respond, the world began spinning around me. Instinctively, I reached into my pocket for some candy, but it was empty. When Franklin was alive, he would always put a few candies in my pocket. After he left, I forgot to do it myself. It seems they were right. I really am useless. Just as I was about to faint, someone put a candy in my mouth. Then a gentle, pleasant female voice said, "Ma'am, I'm a doctor. You're having a hypoglycemic episode. Please eat this candy first." When I woke up again, I was sitting on a chair in the waiting room. My head was resting on a young girl's shoulder. She looked to be about 25, and her eyes were red as she stared at the conversation on her phone. I wasn't trying to snoop, but a quick glance revealed 2 lines of text. "She's back. Let's break up." Although I'm not up to date with trends and not very good with smartphones, I knew what those 2 sentences meant. Realizing I was awake, the young girl turned to look at me. She quickly turned off her phone screen and discreetly wiped away her tears before putting on a beautiful smile. "Ma'am, you're awake. How are you feeling?" I assured her I was much better and thanked her. Everyone has their own story, and so do I. Seeing that she didn't want to talk about it, I pretended to know nothing. Her name was Sue April, and during our chat, I learned she was also headed to Kunming. Not only were we on the same train, but our seats were also next to each other. When she heard that I didn't know how to use a smartphone, she was quite surprised, but patiently taught me step by step. Seeing her patience, I was touched. I had lived so long, and even my daughter was impatient with me. Yet a stranger was so kind in teaching me. Perhaps because the journey was long, we gradually opened up to each other and started talking freely. To my surprise, our journeys were not the only things we had in common. Our experiences were also strikingly similar. The difference was that I discovered Franklin's unforgettable first love after he had passed away in my old age, while she found out she was a substitute at 18, just 2 years after falling in love. At that moment, 2 souls 40 years apart found comfort in each other. April suddenly took my hand and made a significant decision. "Ma'am, let's live together." When she said that, my first reaction was, of course, to refuse. After all, after Franklin's death, I once thought I wouldn't live much longer either. He was only 6 years older than me and couldn't escape the inevitabilities of life, aging, illness, and death. So how could I? I didn't want to burden a young person with my aging and increasingly frail body. But despite my gentle refusal, April remained firm. "From now on, I'm your daughter," she said. April was a doctor who had voluntarily applied to be transferred to Kunming. She had a house there, not in the city center, but in a pleasant environment. There was a small courtyard in front of the house, and despite the lack of maintenance, the flowers and plants in the yard thrived thanks to the environment. Once we arrived, we made a decision that very night. She would go to work, and I would open a flower shop. I would sell flowers both offline and, following the trend, do live streams to teach flower arranging and sell bouquets. Although Franklin had pampered me into a dependent old lady, I had always been passionate about flower arranging. After decades of studying it, I might not be a master, but I was quite skilled. As for live streaming, I was confident that with April's help, I would eventually get the hang of it. Luckily, live streaming wasn't too difficult. The business was slow at the start, but thanks to my high flower arranging skills and persistence, I gained a small following of tens of thousands within a year and a half. While it wasn't enough to make us wealthy, it allowed us to buy whatever we wanted without hesitation. That is, until one day when an unexpected visitor came to the flower shop. It was a somewhat familiar figure. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. It wasn't until the old man's features gradually came into focus that I realized this wasn't a dream. The person in front of me was Franklin, who had supposedly died of a heart attack. My heart ached fiercely, but when our eyes met, I quickly composed myself. I suppressed my hoarse voice and asked nonchalantly, "Are you choosing a bouquet for your wife? Is it her birthday or some other anniversary?" Today was neither Valentine's Day nor any other holiday. After a year and a half of life experiences, I had learned a lot about social niceties. With my question, the old man in front of me lifted his head to look at me. He opened his mouth in surprise, then stammered, "I'm just browsing," before hastily fleeing. I finally confirmed that he was indeed Franklin. The heart attack and failed rescue had been a lie. His faked death was the truth. For that woman, Franklin had not only abandoned me, but also willingly given up the G family's hundreds of billions in assets. What I didn't expect was that ever since our encounter at the flower shop, I frequently ran into Franklin near my home. Even if I didn't see his face clearly, just seeing that familiar figure from afar, with whom I had lived for decades, was enough to recognize him. Curiosity got the better of me, and I was too tired to continue pretending. The next time I saw Franklin lurking nearby, I decided to take the initiative. I appeared before him as he was looking around and asked, "Mr. G, shouldn't you be accompanying your wife? What are you doing near my little flower shop?" Perhaps not expecting to be caught, Franklin, usually calm and dignified, seemed flustered. Before he could respond, I spoke again. "Don't tell me you're just passing by. I've seen you around these past few days." This time, he finally mustered the courage to say, "Anna, perhaps we should talk." I stared at him in silence. He swallowed hard and spoke again. "I know I've wronged you, but there are things I need to explain." I wasn't particularly interested in hearing about his old, worn-out stories with his unforgettable first love, but seeing the sincerity in his eyes, I was curious to know what lies he would come up with this time. So I nodded, signaling him to sit down. While arranging flowers, I listened to him speak. "I didn't want to deceive you after all. We spent most of our lives together. Dying for you was a painful farewell, but it's better than..." I felt like laughing but restrained myself. Casually, I asked, "Better than abandoning your wife and children in your 60s to seek a new lover, right?" Franklin sparing my feelings was just an excuse. His real motive was to keep his dignity while still being with his beloved. Unfortunately, the world is both big and small. Running into me here was beyond your expectations. Perhaps I hit a nerve as Franklin opened his mouth but then said nothing. "Leave. I'll pretend you died, and you can pretend you never met me." With my dismissal, Franklin didn't linger. He staggered to his feet and walked out with unsteady steps. Watching his retreating figure, I realized that in just a year and a half, Franklin had aged rapidly. Once, even at nearly 70, he looked like he was in his 50s. Now anyone would believe him if he claimed to be over 70. He finally got to spend his life with his beloved first love, so why did he look so miserable? "Mom, who was that man just now? Why are you crying?" April's voice snapped me back to reality. I touched the corner of my eye and realized I had indeed shed tears. Seeing me like this, April asked softly, "Mom, is he Mr. G?" I nodded, not hiding the truth, and told her everything about our conversation. April gently held my hand and said, "Mom, I know the reason." It turned out that April had already noticed this old man who often lingered near the flower shop even before I did. Out of curiosity and concern for my safety, she looked into it further and quickly pieced together the whole story. After moving to Kunming, Franklin and Amanda did enjoy a relatively happy life, going out together at sunrise and returning at sunset. Unfortunately, Franklin, being elderly, was not as vigorous as he once was. Moreover, after faking his death and changing his name, he became an idle old man without even a pension. But Amanda was different. She had become a widow in her old age, leaving half of her estate to her children and the other half for her own use. Although it wasn't much, it was enough for a comfortable old age. Additionally, she was well-maintained, slim, delicate, and charming. Many people pursued her when she was young, and even in old age, a long line of admirers followed her. Every day at the park, numerous dance partners invited her to dance, some even younger than her unforgettable first love with higher pensions. Over time, Amanda found Franklin's old man's smell unbearable and complained that he wasn't as romantic as the charming old Wang next door. Without a pension, he failed to provide emotional value and was also materially lacking. After explaining all this, April hesitated to speak further. I said, "April, I know what you want to say. He doesn't regret faking his death and losing me. He regrets giving up everything and not getting what he wanted in return. Don't worry. I won't go back. At my age, I see through love more clearly than young people. If there's no love, there's no love. Rather than getting entangled and torturing myself, it's better to cut ties cleanly." I went to the park. From a distance, I saw Amanda surrounded by a crowd. She had a slim figure wearing a pink low-cut crop top that exposed her midriff with a white cardigan over it. She paired this with beige wide-leg pants that had a slit up to her thigh and high heels. A group of old men stared at her, completely mesmerized, while Amanda danced passionately with an elderly man. Sometimes she was lifted high by the old man, and at other times they pressed close together, gazing into each other's eyes. Their high-difficulty dance moves stunned everyone. Many people recorded videos with their phones, and even I was captivated by her dance. I had to admit, compared to me, Amanda's elderly life was indeed colorful and vibrant. As for Franklin, he stood there with a tense expression, staring intensely at the dancing pair. After the dance ended, he stepped forward, but before he could get close, other old men swarmed in. He was pushed to the edge of the crowd, seemingly wanting to stop them, but realizing he had no right to do so. He could only stand there awkwardly. Indeed, life was not as he wished. But as I had thought, I didn't return to the park to join the fun. Instead, Franklin started showing up at my door frequently. Sometimes it was because the wholesale flowers arrived, and he would rush to help me carry them. Sometimes he saw the pile of leaves and petals from my flower arrangements and offered to clean up. Sometimes he brought lunch, saying he made my favorite sweet and sour pork. It turned out he knew what I liked to eat. He just didn't want to remember or bother making it. Unfortunately, I had not only learned to cook, but had become quite skilled at it. Looking at the lunchbox he was holding, I opened my own and said, "Sweet and sour pork is too greasy. I stopped liking it long ago. Now I eat what I cook myself. It's healthy and nutritious." He continued to visit frequently, but I no longer shut the door in his face. In the 3rd year of Franklin's downfall, he finally faced harsh reality. Penniless and thrown out by Amanda, he called his daughter. Unfortunately, the daughter he raised refused to acknowledge him, claiming her father had been dead for 3 years. Franklin, undeterred, somehow found a way to contact reporters, announcing that he was the former president of G's Group. However, everyone knew that the former president of G's Group had long since passed away, and they had all attended his memorial service. Many people came forward to testify that the Franklin in front of them was just an imposter who looked similar. Even his daughter posted a death certificate online, tearfully accusing this imposter of having sinister motives. Franklin couldn't prove his identity. After receiving ridicule and sarcasm from netizens, he sank into depression once again. On the other hand, I, who was once considered fragile, became a hot topic among netizens because of Franklin's claim that he wasn't dead. I was voted the happiest woman on the internet without a doubt. I took advantage of this wave of attention, gaining hundreds of thousands of followers from my flower shop's account. With fresh and abundant bouquets, orders flooded in. I had no choice but to hire several employees to help manage the flower shop business. With this surge of traffic and diligent management, I made a substantial profit. I was so busy that I had no time to care whether Franklin, like before, visited the flower shop daily. Until a few months later, when Franklin appeared in front of me with his daughter. He was no longer the disheveled man he once was. Dressed in a custom-tailored suit, he had transformed back into the arrogant Franklin of the past. This time, with red-rimmed eyes, he and his daughter begged me to come home. I looked at them in surprise and said, "Daughter, I'm sorry. The only home I have is the one behind me. As for my husband, he's been dead for years, with grass on his grave already 2 meters high." Franklin was stunned. He paused before saying, "Anna, I truly know I was wrong. What do I need to do for you to forgive me?" His daughter's expression changed. "Mom, at your age, why are you still throwing a tantrum? Yes, Dad was wrong, but he was just trying to make up for the regrets of his youth. Besides, if a woman can't keep her husband's heart for 40 years, don't you think she has a problem too? I admit my daughter was raised by Franklin, so it's natural she's close to him. But her blatant lies to excuse her father were laughable. I slapped her hard. Shut up. Unfortunately, the daughter he had raised refused to acknowledge him, claiming that her father had been dead for 3 years. Unfazed, Franklin somehow managed to contact reporters, announcing that he was the former president of G's Group. However, everyone knew that the real Franklin G had passed away long ago and had been given a grand memorial service. Many people came forward to testify that the man in front of them was just an imposter who bore a resemblance to the late Franklin. Even his daughter posted a death certificate online, tearfully accusing this imposter of having sinister motives. Franklin couldn't prove his identity. After facing ridicule and sarcasm from netizens, he sank into a deep depression once again. On the other hand, I, who was once considered fragile and dependent, became a trending topic among netizens because of Franklin's claim that he wasn't dead. I was voted the happiest woman on the internet without a doubt. I seized the opportunity, gaining hundreds of thousands of followers for my flower shop's social media account. With fresh and abundant bouquets orders poured in, I had to hire several employees to help manage the business. And with the surge in traffic and diligent management, I made a substantial profit. I became so busy that I had no time to care whether Franklin, as before, visited the flower shop daily. A few months later, Franklin reappeared in front of me, this time with his daughter. He was no longer the disheveled man I had seen before. Dressed in a custom-tailored suit, he had transformed back into the proud, dignified Franklin of the past. With red-rimmed eyes, he and his daughter pleaded with me to return home. I looked at them in surprise and calmly said, "Daughter, I'm sorry, but the only home I have is the one behind me. As for my husband, he's been dead for years, and the grass on his grave is already 2 meters high." Franklin was stunned. After a brief pause, he said, "Anna, I truly know I was wrong. What do I need to do for you to forgive me?" His daughter's expression hardened. "Mom, at your age, why are you still throwing a tantrum? Yes, Dad was wrong, but he was just trying to make up for the regrets of his youth. Besides, if a woman can't keep her husband's heart for 40 years, don't you think she has a problem too?" I couldn't help but laugh at her blatant attempt to excuse her father's actions. I slapped her hard across the face and said, "Shut up. Since I walked out of the G family's door, we have no relationship anymore. You say I have a problem, then let me ask you, if your husband kept a mistress, would that be your fault too?" My daughter burst into tears, covering her face, and warned Franklin, "Dad, look at Mom. How can she say such cruel things? Forget it. I don't need a mother like this." She stormed out, leaving Franklin standing there looking lost. I took a deep breath and told him firmly, "You should go too. No one named G is welcome here." I thought that after our last argument, Franklin wouldn't return. After all, he had successfully rebuilt his life, regaining power and fame once again. I believed that with his now stable finances and polished appearance, his unforgettable first love would return to him. But, to my surprise, ever since that day, Franklin started showing up at my door frequently again. He always dressed appropriately, standing quietly at the entrance, peering inside. Sometimes he held flowers, other times he brought small gifts. But most of the time, he simply stood there quietly, watching me, always with a smile. I ignored him, but he persisted day after day for an entire year, becoming a unique sight at my little flower shop. Someone filmed a video of this, which quickly went viral online. Many young people sighed, admiring how romantic and devoted older people could be, unlike the fickle younger generation. The internet has no memory. They affectionately called Franklin a cute old man and dubbed me a stubborn old lady. They didn't understand why at my age, I was so stubborn and refused to accept the old man's confession. I remained silent. Even though he had treated me as a substitute, he had cared for me for decades. so I kept the truth to myself to preserve his dignity. However, as more and more people came to my flower shop to see Franklin and shoot videos, my shop and live streaming account were affected. Some extreme young people began to attack my account, posting abusive comments and even maliciously returning flowers they had purchased from my live streams. The flowers, having been shipped back and forth for several days, were no longer usable, causing me to lose tens of thousands of dollars in a short period. Helpless, I temporarily closed my live stream to avoid the turmoil and sold flowers only offline. But then, another piece of news quietly climbed to the top of the trending topics. Franklin's true identity was exposed, along with our 40-year marriage. What followed was the revelation of how he had faked his death and abandoned everything for his unforgettable first love. Netizens who had once been spectators quickly switched sides, turning their attacks on Franklin. He went from being a cute old man to an old scumbag, while I became the poor, humiliated, and lonely old lady wandering in a foreign land. A popular blogger with exceptional acting skills delved into my background and, with tears in their eyes, narrated my tragic story on camera. They recounted how I had lost my parents at a young age, how Franklin's first love had chosen a wealthier man and abandoned him, and how, after being rejected, Franklin couldn't forget her and treated me as a substitute. The blogger described how he had lifted me up to the clouds, only to throw me down later. In short, the storyline was indeed accurate, but even more melodramatic than I could have imagined. But the past was the past. Even if netizens and the blogger claimed they cried, I felt nothing. Perhaps the video's popularity was too overwhelming, and Franklin's life was affected. Since the surge in attention, he hadn't shown up again. My flower shop returned to its usual bustling state, or more accurately, business was even better than before. Some netizens suggested I change my line of work, arguing that running a flower shop isn't very lucrative, especially since I prioritize quality and aesthetics, leaving little profit. Some merchants approached me, offering to sponsor my live streaming sessions to sell their products, but I refused them all. I just wanted to stick to my small patch of land and live a peaceful life. As the heat from the incident gradually faded, Amanda showed up. This was the third time I had seen this woman. Unlike her appearance in the park, this time she wore an elegant and fitting cheapao. Her long black hair was pinned up with a hairpin, and as she stepped into my flower shop, her eyes were full of disdain. "I thought it would be a large flower shop," she remarked, "but it's just a small workshop." I ignored her, and Amanda continued to wander around the shop. Finally, she looked at me and said, "I didn't expect him to find a substitute. You did resemble me when you were young, but now that you're older, you look even more like me. But unfortunately, a fake is still a fake. Do you know why he came back to you?" Without turning my head, I replied, "I don't need to know." Perhaps my indifference annoyed Amanda, and she snapped, "You need to know. I'll tell you. It's because I ignored him. That's why he remembered you. You were a substitute in the past, you are now, and you always will be. If you've always acted proud, keep being proud. Don't ever go back to him. And Franklin, believe it or not, all I have to do is beckon, and he'll come running back to me." I quietly listened to her finish, while my hands remained busy with flower arranging. Netizens in the live stream were in an uproar. Netizen A, "Whoa, who's that? How can she be so arrogant?" Netizen B, "Do you even need to guess? It's obviously the old mistress. These two are a perfect match." Netizen C, "Grandma, slap her. If you don't, I will." Besides these comments, the feed was filled with people cursing her. Seeing she was about to leave after her harsh words, I calmly asked, "I'm still live streaming. Do you want to organize your words and say it again?" Amanda was taken aback. "Anastasia, you did this on purpose, didn't you? I didn't expect you to be so shameless." With that, she reached out to grab my phone, but I quickly flipped it face down on the table and slapped her across the face. "Listen, what happens between you and him is none of my business. If you have the ability to win over your man, do it openly. Coming here to show off, are you feeling guilty?" Whether she felt guilty or not, Amanda left in a hurry after my scolding. The originally declining popularity surged back into the top 3 due to the argument that occurred with Amanda's appearance. Netizens uncovered Amanda's identity and even found her short video account. Upon discovering that she was the lady who danced passionately with various partners in the park, many netizens released videos of her interacting closely with different dance partners. Besides her suggestive dance moves in the park, there were numerous private interactions. For instance, she was seen soaking in hot springs with different old men and entering and leaving hotels, living quite a wild life for her age. Additionally, her colorful dance outfits led netizens to nickname her Madame Flower. The once slim, well-maintained, and highly praised fashionable madam became a target of ridicule. Many people made memes of her, captioning them with, "I want to seduce you," to mock her. Netizens called for Franklin and Amanda to stay together and stop bothering me, the old lady. It was also a netizen's reminder that prompted me to file for divorce from Franklin. Receiving the lawyer's letter, Franklin came to see me again. This time, he didn't stop outside the door but walked into the flower shop. His eyes were full of guilt and reluctance as he looked at me. "Anna, I heard what Amanda said. I was foolish. There was a time when I did see you as her substitute, taking her place by my side, but now I realize you are unique. Those years with you were genuine. Anna, 40 years, a full 40 years. If I didn't love you, could I have persisted?" I stopped what I was doing and asked, "Does it matter now? Or was I not clear enough? Amanda was right. You remembered me because she didn't want you. If not for your disgrace and her indifference, if not for you seeing her true nature, would you remember me? If you had said this to me 3 years ago, maybe I would have believed you, but not now." That night, as I was closing the flower shop, I saw April standing on the roadside talking with a man. Even in the dim streetlight, I could see the glimmer of tears in her eyes. I didn't know what they talked about, but after they said their goodbyes, April walked toward me. They got married recently, and he was diagnosed with late-stage cancer. The doctor said he has at most 6 months to live. Oh, and that woman left. She said she was happy. I'm quite happy about it. Though she said she was happy, her eyes were red. I asked, "Are you really happy?" She nodded, then suddenly threw herself into my arms, sobbing, "I should be happy, but I don't know why it hurts so much here." She pointed at her chest and then at her eyes. "The tears won't stop. Actually, it's really good. It's karma. He deserves it." I was a bit worried about her state. "Really?" I asked. "Really, I swear. After crying, whoever cries again is a dog. After all, I loved him for so many years. Even if it was a dog I raised for many years, I'd still feel sad if it died, right?" I nodded gently, patting her shoulder. If after I'm gone you feel lonely, you can always find a companion." "No need," April interrupted me. "Being alone is fine. Aren't you planning to stay single too? Even though you loved him once, looking back, it wasn't that much love. It was just an unwillingness to let go." I couldn't deny her words. What deep love, what undying affection. It was all just an unwillingness to let go. Whether it was me, April, Franklin, or Amanda, we all held on to something that no longer existed. After rejecting Franklin last time, my life returned to peace. Not long after receiving the lawyer's letter, they didn't show up in court as scheduled for the divorce. Instead, my daughter called me again. She asked, "You're so old. Do you really need to divorce? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at?" Her question made me laugh, and I replied, "Divorce isn't promiscuity. Why should I be laughed at? The one who betrayed is the one to be laughed at." She was silent for a long time before finally responding, "All right, I hope you don't regret it." On the day of the divorce proceedings, Franklin's condition had visibly deteriorated. He seemed to be in a daze, as if his body was present but his soul was lost somewhere. But none of that concerned me anymore. From that day forward, I was no longer Mrs. G. I was simply Anastasia. After the divorce, I returned to Kunming. The internet is a magical place. Once the hype dies down, new things emerge, and old topics are gradually forgotten as if they never happened. 3 months later, I accompanied April to the funeral of Daniel, the cancer patient. Daniel's parents, younger than me, were left haggard by the pain of losing a child. As we were about to leave, Daniel's mother held April's hand and handed her a letter. "This is from Dan. He asked me to give it to you personally. He said he had no regrets being with you in this life. His only regret was not cherishing you enough. And in his last moments, he was thinking of you. He wasn't avoiding you. He just didn't want you to see him bald and skeletal? April's expression was indifferent as she took the letter with a simple, "Oh." After the family left, April tore the letter into pieces without any hesitation and threw it in the trash. A good horse doesn't turn back to graze. If you don't love, you don't love. All that melodramatic stuff is disgusting. This person has already ended in my world. There's no need to read those sappy words and upset myself. As she said this, her face showed neither sadness nor joy. I think she had truly moved on. 6 months later, I saw Franklin again. He stood in front of the flower shop, dressed in a neatly pressed suit, holding a bouquet of roses and smiling broadly. For a moment, I was transported back to our early days when we first met. He had stood under my office building, holding a bouquet of roses, waiting for me to get off work. Seeing me walk out of the flower shop, he hurried over, speaking softly, "Anna, you're off work. Anna, you're so beautiful. I truly love you. Will you marry me? I promise to love you forever." I was stunned. The light in his eyes didn't seem fake, but what was this act now? I quickly asked, "Franklin, how old are you? Still playing these tricks? We're already divorced. Please stop bothering me. Let's maintain some dignity for each other." Hearing my words, he froze, repeatedly muttering, "Divorced? Divorced from what? You haven't even agreed to my proposal yet." My daughter got out of the car and walked over to Franklin. "Dad, you're confused again. Have you forgotten that you and Mom are already divorced? Come back with me and stop wandering around." I didn't understand what was happening, but had a vague suspicion. My daughter explained, "Dad was diagnosed with dementia last year. His condition is worsening. He often forgets many things, but he never seems to forget that he loves you. I know it's impossible for you two to be together again, so I'll make sure he doesn't bother you anymore." At the end, she bit her lip. "Mom, I'm sorry. I was too headstrong and said things that hurt you. I'm sorry." Later on, Franklin still showed up at my flower shop door from time to time, holding a bouquet of flowers. At his worst, he forgot who he was, but when asked by passers-by, he still remembered his greatest love, Anna. April told me all this. Later, he was taken home by his daughter and given 24-hour care, never getting lost again. The latest news I heard about him was that he had passed away at the age of 76, the year I turned 70. His daughter called to inform me, saying that even in his last moments, he was calling my name. But I felt no ripples in my heart. As for Amanda, after ruining her reputation, she continued mingling with various old men. Unfortunately, one time the wives of these old men confronted her. In the tussle, she accidentally fell down the stairs. Strangely, the stairs weren't long or high, but she hit the back of her head on the ground and was dead before she reached the hospital. Of the three of us, only I lived long, reaching 98 years old. April met me when she was 25, and I was just 60. Now she was 63. I lay in my warm bed, and she was there with me in my final moments. I believe she will live a happy life and die in a warm bed too.